Hello everybody. This class is based on work study. Work study is a study which is done by an industry engineer in order to improve the efficiency or productivity of a system or a production system. Now, it refers to all the techniques which are used by an industrial engineer to study or examine the human work in all its aspects so as to systematically investigate the same, systematically investigate all the factors which will affect the efficiency or economy of the system under review so as to bring improvements, right? So here the industrial engineer, he examines the work, human work, in order to investigate what are the factors which can be carried out so as to improve the efficiency of the production system under study. Now, work study has got two parts. One is called method study and second is called work measurement, as you can see from here. Method study basically, it tries to make the job simpler and tries to develop the systematic, scientific and economical method for doing the job. Whereas work measurement, it basically refers to find out or determine the quantity of work involved in the job, and it is determined by time study, which is the most popular study of doing work measurement, and it tries to find out how much time it will be taken by a qualified worker to complete the job at a defined level of performance. So in today's class, we are going to see this work study and we are going to see how this method study and work measurement are carried out. Now there are certain steps in order to carry out this study of work study. So these steps are narrated here, given here. So first is the industrial engineer has to select, he has to go to the shop floor and he has to select the job which will be under study. He has to select the job or the process which will be under study. Second is, then once he selects the job, he has to record with the recording device all what is happening around so as to have data easily available to him so that it can be analyzed. So once he has selected the job, he records the work, he records the data using a recording device so that it can be analyzed. Then third step is examination of the work which he has recorded. He has to critically examine the work and he has to challenge each and every activity what is being carried out. For example, for this he takes the help of a flowchart. So once the work is recorded, it is put in the form of a flowchart. And the industrial engineer tries to understand what are the activities which are needed, which add value to the system, and what are the activities which do not add any value to the system. That means it tries to segregate the value-added activities from non-value-added activities, and if there are non-value-added activities, those non-value-added activities are to be curtailed. Moreover, there are certain movements which are to be removed, which are in movements and which develops fatigue in the worker. So in the examination part, the work is examined in a critical manner in order to understand what are the non-value-added activities, what are the ill movements which can be curtailed. Moreover, when a machine is operating, there are two types of activities which are being carried out. One is called internal activities, another is called external activities. Internal activities refer to those activities which carried out, which can be carried out when the machine is not operating, and external activities are activities which can be carried out when the machine is operating. So by examining, it is the industrial engineer tries to find out whether the internal activities can be converted into external activities, that is the activities which can be carried out even when the machine is working. Moreover, the sequence of the jobs or the sequence of the activities in which the work is carried out, that is also studied so as to find out can we change some sequential activities into parallel activities. So all these things are carried out in the examination part, and finally in the fourth stage he develops the scientific method based on his examination so as to so that a scientific method is developed for carrying out the job. Once the job is developed, fifth is measurement. So in the measurement part, measure the work content or the quantity of the work involved in the job and find out the time taken by a qualified worker to complete the job with a defined level of performance. Then we define the job along with the time taken along with the related time as the standard practice. Once it is defined, say sixth step is it has to be installed. Install means it has to be put as a standard practice along with the method and the time, so that workers follow that standard practice in doing their job. And finally, it has to be maintained. That means we are human beings and we have a tendency to go back to our initial way of doing the job. So the new method with the related time, with the calculated time to carry out the job, are to be put as a standard practice, and it should be seen that those method is maintained in when the workers are doing a job, so that the efficiency of the production system can be improved. So these are the 7 steps of carrying out work study. Out of these, the first 3 steps, that is select, record and examine, are the common steps which are to be carried out irrespective of whether you are going for method study or work measurement. Basically, the fourth job that is developed, that refers to the method study, and the fifth step, that is measure, that basically refers to the work measurement. So work study basically refers to the techniques of examination of human work in all its aspects, with the objective of systematically investigating all the factors which will affect the efficiency and economy of the system under reviewed. And the basic objective of such study is to bring improvement in the system. Now it has got 2 parts. Work study has got 2 parts, method study and work measurement. Method study basically refers to the study in order to make the job simpler and to develop an economical and scientific method of doing the job. Whereas work measurement basically refers to determine the quantity of work involved in a work. And the most popular technique for doing work measurement is time study, in which the industrial engineer goes to the shop floor with a stopwatch to determine how much time will be required by a qualified worker to complete the job at a defined level of performance. So we have used few terms like qualified worker, performance level. What are they? That we are going to see in details in the subsequent discussions. So we have understood what is work study. The aim of work study is to bring improvement in the system, to increase the efficiency and economy of the system under reviewed. And it has got 2 parts. In the first part, we try to develop a scientific method of doing the job, and in the second part, we try to understand how much time will be required to complete the job with which will be following the scientific method, right? Now, what are the steps? Let's see the steps involved in doing or conducting a work study. The steps are, first, we have to select the job which will be under study. So select the job or the process which is to be studied. Second is record with the help of direct observation and a recording device what is happening around us, so that the data is available for critically examining or critically analyzing when we need it. So in that case, what happens? The industrial engineer goes to the shop floor and tries to see in details how the work is carried out by the worker, right? So he records with the help of a recording device how the work is being carried out, so that it can be examined or critically examined in details in the next step. Third step is examine. So the recorded steps or the recorded way of doing the job is generally put in terms of a flow chart. So in the flow chart, the industrial engineer tries to examine what are the activities which add value to the system and what are the activities which do not add any value to the system. That means he segregates between value added activities and non-value added activities so that the non-value added activities can be curtailed, and definitely that is going to decrease the time taken to do the job, and hence it will improve the efficiency of the system. Now there are two types of activities. One is called internal activities and second is called external activities. Internal activities are those activities which can be carried out when the machine is not working, whereas external activities are those activities which can be carried out when the machine is working. So is it possible to convert the internal activities into external activities so that it will take less amount of time to carry out the job? That is also examined in the examination step. Right? So by doing this, the industrial engineer tries to find out what can be the scientific or the economical method of doing the job. Once he does that, then he develops, the next step is he develops the scientific method of doing the job, and which this step basically refers to method study. Once the scientific method or economical method of doing the job is developed, then fifth step is measure. That means measure the quantity of work involved in the job, and the most popular technique, as I was discussing, for doing this work measurement is time study, in which the industrial engineer goes to the shop floor with the help of a stopwatch and he tries to understand how much time the worker is taking to carry out the job when he is following the developed method. Once the developed method is finalized along with the related time, the job is defined in terms of that as a standard practice. Once the job is defined in terms of developed method, scientific method and the related time, it is to be installed as a standard practice so that the workers should follow the newly developed method and should be able to complete the job within the time. And finally, the last step is maintain. We as a human being have a tendency to go back to our old methods of doing the job. So it has to be ensured that the newly developed method is to be followed by having certain control procedures or by maintaining certain control procedures. So these are the steps of work study. The three steps, that is select, record and examine, are common step whether we are going for method study or work measurement. These are the common step. Step number 4 basically refers to the method study, whereas step number 5, that is measure, basically refers to the work measurement. Now we will see what is a qualified worker. A qualified worker is a worker who has the necessary physical attributes to carry out the job and who has the intelligence and education and who has acquired skills and knowledge to carry out the job so as to maintain certain standards of safety, quantity and quality. So by qualified worker, we mean that the worker should have physical attributes, intelligence, skills, knowledge, so as to carry out the job so that the standards of safety, quality and quantity can be maintained. There is another term in case of work study which is very important, and that is called performance rating. What is performance rating? Now, performance rating is a measure of comparing the performance of the worker under study with reference to the standard worker or the qualified worker whose performance level is considered to be 100. So performance rating is nothing but the ratio of rating of the observed worker by rating of the qualified worker, and the rating of the qualified worker is always considered to be 100. So it is basically rating of observed worker divided by 100. So that is the performance rating. Now there will be certain workers, some workers will be there whose performance rating is more than the qualified worker. So they are highly efficient worker, and there are certain workers, there will be few workers whose rating or whose performance will be lesser than the qualified worker, that is less than 100, and they are less efficient workers. We will also see another term which is very important in terms of work study, that is called basic time, which is also known as normal time. Basic time or normal time, they are the same, and this time refers to the time taken by a qualified worker to complete a job. As you can see in the formula, basic time equals to observed time into performance rating, right? Actually, observed time means the time taken by a worker under observation, and basic time or normal time refers to the time taken by a qualified worker whose efficiency is or performance level is 100%. So if you can see this, normal time into standard rating, that is rating of qualified worker, equals to observed time into rating of observed worker. If you remember chemistry, we have done when we do the volumetric analysis, V1 S1 equals to V2 S2. That means volume into strength equals to, that remains constant. So similarly here, the normal time and the into multiplied by rating of the qualified worker will be the same as observed time and rating of the observed worker. So with this, we see that normal time equals to observed time into rating of observed worker by rating of qualified worker, and rating of qualified worker is 100, so that gives us basic time or normal time equals to observed time into performance rating in terms of percentage. I hope this is clear. So if a worker who is under observation, he is taking 5 minutes time and his performance level is 80%, in that case the normal time, that means the time taken by a qualified worker to complete the job, will be 5 into 80 by 100, that is 4 minutes. That means since the qualified worker is more efficient than the worker who is under observation, so he will be taking lesser time and his time will be 4 minutes, whereas the time taken by a worker under observation is 5 minutes. There are two other terms which are very important in terms of work study. One is called relaxation allowance. Relaxation allowance basically is the time given to worker to overcome fatigue, which includes fatigue due to postures, fatigue due to concentration, fatigue due to his position for a long period of time, and also it includes the time to attain nature calls, as well as to have some time for attending phone calls. So for that, some amount of time is given to the worker, and that is called relaxation allowance. And this relaxation allowance is generally 10 to 20% of the normal time. Apart from relaxation allowance, there is another allowance which is called contingency allowance. Now, contingency allowance is the allowance or the time which is given to the worker for infrequent or non-repetitive activities, like sometimes he has to talk to his supervisor for some consultation, or he has to bring the tools from the tool store room, or he has to sharpen the tools. So these are all these are infrequent activities, and for that he needs some time. And for that reason, some contingency allowance are given to the worker, and that contingency allowance is around, generally it is around 5% of the normal time. So we have seen what is work study. You are examining the human work in all its aspects so as to investigate systematically all the factors which can bring the efficiency and economy of the system under study, thereby bringing some improvements. Then we have seen work study has got two parts: method study, work measurement. Method study basically refers to define or develop a scientific and more economical method of doing the job, a simpler method of doing the job. without affecting the quality, whereas work measurement refers to find out or determine the work content in a job, and it basically refers to determining the time taken by a qualified worker to complete the specific job under defined level of performance. Then we have seen what are the steps involved in carrying out the work study. The three steps, that is select, record, examine, are the common steps which are to be carried out irrespective of method study and work measurement, whereas the fourth step, develop, which basically refers to the method study, whereas the fifth step, that is measure, basically refers to the work measurement. Measure means measure the content of work, quantity of work, and determine how much time it will be taken by a qualified worker to do the same. Then we have defined the term qualified worker. So he should have physical attributes, intelligence, education, necessary skills and knowledge to carry out the job so that he can perform at a standard of safety, quantity and quality. Then we have seen two more terms, performance rating, that is rating of observed worker by rating of qualified worker. So PR equals to, since rating of qualified worker is 100, we can understand that PR in terms of percentage is nothing but rating of observed worker by 100. So PR in terms of percentage we are going to use in our formula. So that is nothing but rating of observed worker by 100. Then we have seen the term normal time, which is also called basic time, which is nothing but the time taken by a qualified worker to complete the job with the standard level of performance, which is 100. And then we have seen there are two types of allowances which are given to the workers. Once the normal time is calculated, onto that there are two allowances which are added. One is called relaxation allowance and the second is called contingency allowance. Relaxation allowance are given to the workers so as to make him free from fatigue, and that includes time for your nature calls, attending phone calls, fatigue due to position, posture, concentration. So everything will be coming under relaxation allowance, whereas contingency allowance is given for infrequent or non-repetitive activities. Here normal time into standard rating is observed time into observed rating. So the worker who is under observation, the time taken by him is observed time and his performance is given by observed rating, whereas the normal time is the time taken by a qualified worker and his standard rating is 100. So from there we can understand that normal time equals to OT into performance rating in terms of percentage. Okay. There is another important formula which we should understand, that is standard time. Standard time is the time taken by a qualified worker in order to complete a job when he has given some relaxation allowance as well as some contingency allowance. So standard time is nothing but standard time equals to normal time plus relaxation allowance, which is always given in terms of, which is always a percentage of your normal time, and also the contingency allowance, which is also given as a percentage of your normal time. So if we add normal time and the relaxation allowance as a percentage of normal time plus the contingency allowance as a percentage of normal time, we get the standard time, right? So standard time is the time taken by a qualified worker to complete a job when the relaxation allowance and the contingency allowance is taken into consideration. Now we will see few problems, two problems basically. This is a given problem in which it says that calculate the BT means basic time and standard time for a job given the observed time for a worker with rating 80 is 15 minutes. That means the worker who is under observation, his rating is 80 and he takes 15 minutes to complete the job. We have to determine the basic time as well as the standard time. Here it is given that personal need allowance is 5%, fatigue allowance is 2% and the contingency allowance is 3%. Okay, let's see. Basic time or normal time, we know that it is equal to OT, observed time, into performance rating in terms of percentage. So observed time is 15 minutes, performance rating is 80. Since it is in terms of percentage, 80 by 100, that gives you 12 minutes. So normal time by a qualified worker to complete the same job will be 12 minutes, whereas the 15 minutes is the time taken by an observed worker to complete the job, whose efficiency of the efficiency of the observed worker is 80%. Okay. Next, we will be determining the standard time. So standard time is nothing, as we have seen, it is normal time plus relaxation allowance plus contingency allowance. Both the allowances are calculated as a percentage of your normal time. So 12 plus both the allowances, personal need allowance and fatigue allowance, comes to be 7%. So 7 by 100 into 12 plus contingency allowances of 3%. So that gives us 13.2 minutes. That means 13 minutes and 12 seconds. This is very simple sum. So we can do it, right? We'll see another sum. Here it is given like this. A job consists of 5 elements done by 5 workers. OT, that is observed time, and performance levels are given. Calculate the standard time. Given the relaxation allowance is 15% and contingency allowance is 5%. So it is given in the problem that there are 5 elements in the job. The observed rating are given, and all these elements are carried out by 5 different workers. So their performance rating of those workers are also different because it is carried out by 5 different workers, and we have to determine the standard time, right? The relaxation allowance and the contingency allowance is given. So what we will do, this is the solution. Since the observed time and the performance rating is given, we will find out the basic time or the normal time for each element that we have found out using the formula. So the total normal time comes to be 26.2 minutes. If we add all the times normal time for doing all the 5 elements, it comes to 26.2. That means my total normal time is 26.2 minutes. And then standard time becomes 26.2 plus the contingency allowance and the relaxation allowance, which are expressed as a percentage of the normal time and which are added to normal time to get the standard time. So my standard time comes to be 31.44 minutes. With this, we come to the end of today's class. We have discussed what is work study, what are the 2 parts of work study, method study and work measurement. Then we have seen there are certain important terms like qualified worker, then performance rating, normal time, basic time, observed time, contingency allowance, relaxation allowance, and finally standard time. Finally, we did 2 sums, how to determine the standard time. Hope you will go through this and it will help you in doing your exams well and writing your exams well.